Good evening, friends. Welcome to the Leader's Edge, Episode 1, Season.
Everyone, and welcome to our weekly webcast called The Leader's Edge. We are here tonight.
Welcome to episode number 7, Season
Leader's Edge. And in our show today, which is Season 6,
Leader's Edge, Season 3, Episode 10. And
I'm Nelson T. Welcome to this super special episode of The Leader's Edge.
And this is episode 8 of season 6.
Hey guys, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
We are now on our season 6, episode 2. And tonight, we have an amazing and a wonderful
Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Leader's Edge by SEASTBI. And today is Season 8, Episode 11. We're almost at the season's end. Imagine that. 8 seasons. But today is special because we have all the way from Malaysia an expert, PS Daram, who's going to talk about productivity improvement during turbulent times. Mind you, during turbulent times. And so let's all welcome to the virtual stage, PS Daram. PS, could you please introduce yourself to our audience? I mean, they're dying to know what you can bring to the show today.
Okay. Hey, good morning. Thank you very much for the beautiful introduction. Now, just to give you a very brief account, I've been with the manufacturing sector for almost 35 years and bringing you with a wealth of experience to share how we can overcome the current situation of improving. And with that, may I continue with what I have to say. Almost all Southeast Asian countries have been adversely affected by the recent pandemic of the COVID-19 sweeping through the nations and affecting the economic position of countries since 2019. This has a direct impact on the livelihood and the lives of many. Since the beginning of June 2020, with the vaccination in progress in some countries have taken a very conservative step to keep afloat. To add to the injury is the aging population in this region and as the decreasing share of the working population, which is a significant demographic phenomena that affects all segments of the society and the economy. One of the most direct and significant impact is the share of the working age population. It can be correlated that aging may represent a drag on labor productivity growth. While this may be on one side, the market seeking investors very likely will attempt to relocate to countries with a younger workforce to keep their operations. With this in the pipeline, it is necessary that the government address this on improving the productivity of the current workforce to alleviate the negative impact. First, the current workforce needs to be productive and productively employed. As industry champions, the task of keeping up the productivity is essential. And with this, may I share what I have, and we can make the difference in improving the productivity of the current workforce in a very structured manner. With this, may I share my slides? And just give me a minute. Let me take on to you to share my slides to give you the next few minutes. As we are going to talk about productivity improvement during turbulent times. Process analysis. Now, in any given occasion, a process of doing things will be essential. Therefore, is the documentation and the detailed understanding of how work activities are carried out is very, very essential. How it can be redesigned and how to improve it. We need to have the following. Number one, to achieve a desired increased output of everyone who is out there, an improved efficiency of the workforce, an improved effectiveness of the efficiency and effectiveness of the employees. And number four, improve the utilization of all the available resources within our means. And in order to take you through this, we have 6 clear steps outlined here. And the step number 1, and identify an opportunity, which area we want to identify to improve. Step 2 will be define the scope on which we want to cover. And step 3, document the process so that we are in line and we don't forget what we are going to do. Having done that, we got to evaluate the process in many aspects in terms of all areas. And 5, redesign the process, and finally implement this in a flow chart. And may I just take you a little bit more to the depth of it. Now, product or service opportunities. What's happening around us is there's a change in the consumer tastes and attitudes. There's a socially and demographically change around us. There is technological change that's taking place, which is affecting us. And the economy has changed so wide that we need to take this situation. While this is going on in the Southeast Asian countries and everywhere, there is a political and legal change that is taking place. And there are other changes that's happening around organizations with our mergers and acquisitions to improve their market share. And this could mean that some would lose their job while some will retain. And not forgetting the pandemic and the constraints into which we are living. So based on these 7 areas, we need to look at how we can improve our product or our services and finding opportunities in each on every one, or at least concentrate on any one. So we need to define and develop the scope. What is it that we want to plan to do? Define it very specifically. What is it the intended objective? And it must be spelled out explicitly. And what would be the expected results? We should be able to determine what we want to. Have a goal or a quantifiable expectation from the people. Now moving on, if I can say, identifying the opportunities for improvement from employees who are doing the process. Feedback from the customers and users, suppliers are very essential in today's lifestyle. Constraints under the current market situation need to be considered, not only in one perspective, but in 3 different perspectives. From the perspective of efficiency on deliveries, from the aspect of effectiveness of how well we utilize all our available resources, and not forgetting the utilization of the current workforce. Records of the current performance level, output against the manufacturer standards need to be reviewed. And as I mentioned, the efficiency level, the effectiveness, and the utilization in all the 7 areas. And if I can just mention what the 7 areas. Standard books give us only 4 M's, but today I'm expressing 7. The first on the list will be the market. Market is number 1. Number 2, the manpower that we have. 3, the machinery. 4, the methods, the processes in which we do. And don't forget, we have to move on further and look at one other aspect. Now we have seen these machines, we need to look at the money aspect of it, which is the critical killer of today's lifestyle. More and more as we talk about it, the essence of moving efficiency, effectiveness, and utilization bases on one element called time. So here I would like to quote the very famous phrase, every minute counts when it comes to improving productivity. So minutes is the last M. Moving on, if I can share, develop standards. What if there are no manufacturing standards and there are no service standards, we need to develop standards. And standards here can be developed not necessarily from industrial engineering standards, but we can base it on experienced worker standards. It can be a mathematical mean utilizing the hours of work as the basis of payment. And here I would like to express it in three areas of time. One, what is the available time that we have to do a given job? While looking at the available time, being human, we do get fatigued. We may be disrupted, interrupted by various things. And therefore, we need to look at what is known as applied hours. Looking at the applied hours and the available hours, there will be some differences. It may not be the same as what the available hours are. Looking through this and taking consideration of the standard, we see what's the output of the day. We take the output and divide by the standard. We will get what is the earned hours of that day. Now, this may sound a little mathematical, but it is very simple if we look at it from every perspective. Now, if I can make a simple analysis of what efficiency, it's the speed at which it is operated. While effectiveness can be defined as the impact based on application. And utilization is the usage rates of whatever those things. Now, moving on, if I can take it, now this becomes very critical for us to do. Determine the standard per hour. Example, if it's 40 units per hour, that what we need to do, the earned hours will be the cumulative output of the day or the shift divided by that standard. And the available hours can be given by a formula, the total hours made available to carry out the task, less the authorized break times or any other breaks that is being taken away with authority. And therefore, applied hours becomes less the time taken for meetings, material downtime, machine downtime. This gives us a clear indication what applied hours are. And now let's move on. If I look at these three formulas and look at ourselves, document the findings for at least 5 days. And as long as you record your performance, you will see that there will be improvement. So I say anything measured will improve. If you don't measure it, there won't be improvement. So evaluate the performance, the reason for any decline, or differences between two-person, machine, or operation units. Target key areas of the process, detailed analysis, looking into the operations, looking into what inspections are going on, looking into the logistics and transportation processes, looking in how packages are made and packing is carried out. Finally, the gate. I use the word gate here, which simply says before we send an item out for shipment, let's put a gate to verify that that meets the requirement. So it's just like getting a visitor who comes in from your house. If he's a stranger, you may not open the gate. Likewise, we are sending a product out. Oh, let's put a gate out there, and that's certain thing. And finally, let's not forget, storage today is very critical. So we need to store our items and make sure that storage doesn't stay there too long. Obsolete storage will kill us. Then think about redesigning the processes in this area depending on the area of concerns. And I've listed a few as this talk. We can see more as we get through these sessions on the later sessions. Now moving on, the way to evaluate and the way to document ourselves. Before we intervene and looking at productivity, let's look at how we have been performing in the last 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 days and graph it out. And once you graph it out, you will see that where you are actually oscillating. And once you get that mean, this is where we are oscillating. We can now go into what we have created in terms of the formulas, and we call this the line of intervention. And when we intervene and you see performance being recorded, you will see that the performance will slowly make an impact on improving. And as you see it over a period of time, it will create improvement. But as much as these are the technicalities, let's not forget We need to highlight this. We need to keep our employees informed. We need to tell them where we are. Keeping people informed is essential for any of these techniques. Now, in moving along this line, we can see ourselves moving very swiftly towards the end. So, my little recommendation is if we want to implement any changes for the productivity, take one step at a time. Be cautious. Document each step and the result so that we know exactly what we have done. And if we need to make some changes, we have something to fall back. Monitor the compliances of all new changes that we are adhering to. Anything measured gets improved. May I repeat this? And tabulate your results as I indicated earlier in some graphic form. Graphs speaks by themselves. Compare the results against before the intervention. Must see an improvement. That's what I see. And most importantly, keep the stamina and endurance. Every other day, keeping stamina is the essence of growth. And the service process designs take the same step, but here the only difference is understanding the characteristics and adapting to the changing times and constraints is the essential ingredient towards productivity improvement. Whether it's a product or a service, understanding the characteristics, adapting to the changing times is the answer to productivity improvement. If we don't adapt and we don't change, we'll soon become a dinosaur in the Southeast Asian countries. Let's not be dinosaurs. Now, moving further, I can give you certain processes in terms of characteristics, though these are simple charts. I'm not going to read them, but these are areas in which we can look at. This may be the characteristics. In a mass service organization, what happens? And I refer to the retailing section. And if it's on professional services, we can look at areas like accounting, taxation, legal, medical, and so forth. So it doesn't confine us only for productivity in this area of manufacturing, but it goes into the entire world of what we are living with. Now, moving on, we can even look at the service factories where we are looking at fast food restaurants, airlines, hotels, trucking, which is the key today that is being affected by the pandemic. So if we look at those areas of the examples of the services that we are rendering, the low labor intensive and the low in interaction and customizations are the characteristics that we find, and this needs to improve. Services are produced in a factory like setting up high efficiency. Services are standardized and limited. High capital expenditure need to be watchful. Tight controls may be required to maintain quality standards. And here the word quality can differ from person to person, but more importantly, let's learn to give a listening ear to the customer. And if I can say this, today's lifestyle is moving in this area. There is one thing called the degree of customer interaction. And on this side, we have the degree of labor intensity. If I can say this in terms of the 4 quadrants, what we need to do is we got to move into this quadrant, which is the professional services, where we need to move the degree of customer interactions on a very high level, while keeping the degree of labor intensity also very high. If we can move ourselves from this service factory to this quadrant, we are moving towards productivity improvement. And that's how I will see. Now, we may not see the change overnight, but we need to take baby steps first, and we will be there. But give and take, we should be there within the next 6 months. I can see that happen. I have already done it in some companies that I'm currently doing and work, and it is working. Now, what else can we look at? There are many other areas that we can look at. And we can see that in the next coming sessions of our sessions here. We can look at process designs. We can look at purchasing, how we can improve. We can look at benchmarking in organization. We can look at problem solving tools to improve. We can look at product and service designs. Now, if I look at these areas out there, and right in the center, we have the word customer satisfaction. There are only two things that we need to look at. If I look from inside to outside, it is the continuous improvement philosophy that we need to look at and the employee involvement. If we focus on these two and keep the customer satisfaction in our mind, we can see that there are opportunities not only in one area, but as I have listed here, there are 5 key areas that we can look at. And I'm sure with the binoculars over your eyes, you are out there to see how we can improve. This doesn't stop you from moving anything more than this. And with this, I like to say in conclusion, if I can just simply conclude, it may also be necessary to increase the female labor participation by introducing flexible working arrangement, provisions of quality childcare facilities, and skill training to improve the participation of both the current, the age, and the future generation of the labor market. And I hope this little introduction of a 20 minutes presentation gives you an insight. But there's a lot more to dwell into this, and we can see it in the coming sessions of our group. With this, thank you very much.
First of
All
all,
right.
I'd like to thank you. How do
Yes.
your friends call you? PS or Daram?
Oh, they call me Daram.
Okay.
That's the last part of my name.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
Because I have a friend as well. His name is Ferdinand Shaminga, but he
Uh-huh.
prefers me to call him Shaminga rather than by his first name. And so
Yes.
I understand the concept is the same.
Yeah.
Uh, First, I'd like to express my gratitude because it's an honor. We've had Musharraf Hussain, who is your colleague on ANPOD,
Yes.
and recently I also interviewed Janaka,
Ah,
also with ANPOD.
okay.
We had a wonderful discussion when he was the guest on the show, and my programming director, Dina Loomis, said that you are even better. So
Um,
my expectations are quite high.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
let's begin with some of the concepts that you shared.
Okay.
I love the fact that you were able to define applied time. Because for most of us, especially those in manufacturing, we think of time as the time that they're expected to be at work, meaning possibly their gross time or their available time, as you put it, and
Yes.
then the actual time that they work on the job.
Yeah.
So, and then, but I love the way that you refined it further and labeled applied time the way it should be, because most people don't think that way. They it never occurs to them, and it did to you. Let me ask a question first, Daran. How did you first chance upon the thought of, say, coming up with applied time? What epiphany happened for you?
Okay. Let me give you some background. I'm an industrial engineer by background.
Okay.
So we refer to standards, number one. And on the other hand, we have the Employment Act, which is the legal system that controls us. And the Employment Act says an employee should be paid 8 hours of work in a day. You see, but considering the Employment Act and looking at certain conditions, the person has to take a break. There are natural breaks, and the person has to be given a lunch break or a tea break. But let's consider that the person is paid for 8 hours, but he isn't putting the 8 hours of his time in the actual job itself. Number one. So we have to take away those lunch hours and break hours because there's legal requirements. Number one. Number two, in any manufacturing or in any sector, sometimes to give information, the manager or the supervisor calls the employees and briefs them of what needs to be done. Now, you got to be fair to the employee because you have robbed his time to give the information. But it is equally important. If you don't give this information, the employee feels or he may not be guided. So let's be considerate. So we need to take those time away from that employee. Now, there are other circumstances like for some reason, like in the Philippines, if you are disrupted by the typhoon, we may be disrupted with power supply. We may be disrupted by water supply. And as such, the processes cannot be carried out. Now, is the employee at fault? No. So let's not punish the employee. So we need to look at how many hours that the employee had himself to put to actual work. Here, I refer it to the hours that he applied to do the job. See?
Now, Daram, I have a question. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure,
But
please.
I'm very, very curious because we're talking from the framework of manufacturing. That's what
Yes.
I'm guessing. And because manufacturing is made up of different types of personnel, some rules cannot always be applied universally. Like I imagine a lot of managers out there might say, but wait a minute, our lunch breaks aren't just lunch breaks. Sometimes we have meetings over lunch, and those meetings last longer because it's part of our job to be influencers, to be
Right.
collaborators, to be coordinators. Now, how does applied time apply to, say, managers in a situation like that?
Okay, good. Let me take a case of a salesperson who needs to go and visit a customer. He starts work from the office at 8 o'clock, but he has to drive about an hour before he reaches the customer. Now, can you penalize him for that 1 hour that he took to drive? It's part of his job.
As part of his job, yes.
But in the 30-minute meeting that he meets with his customer and he finalizes a sales contract of $30,000, now let's look at it now. In a half an hour of applied hours, I use the word applied hours of half an hour, he has now brought in a revenue of 30,000 US dollars. You see now? Now, so we're looking at the efficiency of the person with what skills he used within the half an hour to clock in and sign off a contract of a US 30,000.
So I can see how applied time really will be of great benefit to those who say are part of the line, from the front of line to the back of line, because minutes count in situations like this.
Right.
Like for example, Tesla or Toyota will make a new car every how many seconds or how many minutes. And so those are crucial. I totally got what you were saying. But in the other areas of, say, an organization like sales, as you eloquently put it, there's travel time, then there's discussion time. But hey, if it nets a lot of profit, then it's worth it.
It's worth it.
It makes sense. Yeah.
See, so that's where I talked about the process. And the process is, how did he approach? What kind of work did he do to go and see the background work that he did to see the customer, and he clocked in the sales, and he saw the need of the customer, he expressed the need, and he gave him a solution of how he can address the problem, and he locked in and he got it out. So that's the process. So if he improves the process of the approach of making the customer, understanding the customer's perspective and the wants and needs of the customer, he has clocked in a sale within half an hour for a US $30,000 sale. You see, the word I express, it doesn't confine to manufacturing. It goes in any areas. Let me give you another example of a doctor.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Doctor.
Now, I'll always tell my friends, if a doctor doesn't spend 20 minutes talking to you, don't go to him.
Okay.
See, because
why?
he has to understand you, He has to
Okay.
understand the process and he has to get all the symptoms right. You are the patient, and he may have to ask further questions to further investigate whether you have other symptoms. You may only express what you experience, but you may not tell what are the things that may not be important to you, but it's important for him to make a decision. And the more you give the information and the more he questions you or asks you relevant questions, you'll be able to pinpoint exactly where you are rather than making 3 visits to the doctor and spending 3 days before the disease becomes too violent.
Yeah, that's
See?
true.
Yeah.
Although today we have the prevalence of online consultations and
Yeah.
how people can get their blood tested and have the test results with them before they even visit the doctor. But I'm with you there. A doctor who does not show interest in his patient is not one to be trusted.
Yes. Don't go to him.
Yeah, definitely not. Daram, I'm also intrigued by one thing a couple of things you mentioned, like for example, the 7 M's.
Yep.
Now, is that somehow loosely based on the Ishikawa fishbone diagram? Because over there, that's 5 or 6 M's.
They have 4.
So four.
Ishikawa
Okay.
depends on 4. And I've
Yes, sir.
added the 3 more.
Oh,
I've
okay.
included the market, I've included the money.
I love that because without finance, organizations cannot survive, cannot function. Money does make the world go round. So
That's what we are
I
for.
like I like what you added there. Far too often, all we hear about is the very limiting 4 aspects of that particular root cause analysis tool.
Right.
Um, I would like to share with you like something that uh, people in HR here in the Philippines have also been using. We added another H to the 5 W's and 2 H. The third H being how often.
Yes.
Because if it's a recurring problem, then it makes sense to tell the boss, we're going to encounter this situation once every quarter. So if you approve the budget for this now, you may as well approve it for the rest of the year because it's going to happen at least 4 times this year. So I wanted to share that with you as well.
Sure.
I was though wondering, while things are getting better worldwide in terms of the pandemic, people are getting better, people are recovering, and no thanks to what Russia is doing, but destabilizing the world just when we're starting to recover. But okay,
Yes.
let's set that aside. Um, Let me ask you, like, give you a chance to make a fearless forecast. How do you see applied hours and the 7 M's being accepted? Because usually when there's anything new, there's resistance, right?
All
I
right.
mean, people will always tend to resist anything new. Um, how is it working in Malaysia, where you're from? Have people embraced it? Are they now
Okay.
applying it?
See, if you make formulas very complex, it's difficult to be accepted. So I've made it very simple here based on the working hours. And that makes it easy. In the last 30 odd years that I have worked, I find that having introduced such concepts has enabled me to improve in many areas, be it semiconductor, be it tooling, in the machining business, be it sales or any other businesses that I've been engaged with, even logistics, shipping, packing. There seems to be a very simple improvement because we know how long it takes to prepare packaging, and that improves. So make things simple for people to understand. It's easily accepted. If you make it a bit more difficult, more technical, it becomes a little bit more difficult for people to accept. So I believe in simplicity.
Yeah, that's right. The simpler it is, the better, because
The
the
easier to accept.
closest, yeah, from point A to point B is a straight line.
Straight line.
um, it has to be simple in the same way that vision statements should be simple, so that everybody from the janitorial staff to the chairman of the board can say it, and therefore everyone's aligned. Uh, I wonder though, Daram, with this pandemic though still active, what industries could, because you did mention some people will lose their jobs, right? And we've seen the tourism industry already take a massive hit. The entertainment industry take a similar hit. You know, movie theaters closed, no concerts going on. Um, what sort of jobs, in your own opinion, should people really be thinking about in terms of retooling so that they can adapt and take advantage of this applied hours of the 7 M's?
See, there are many areas to look at. But if I can just say this, one of the key things that we need to look at is perspective. And I use the word alignment perspective. Irrespective of any job situation, we align ourselves to the changing environment today, then we will be able to survive. So it's not necessarily a particular job that I want to specify. As long as a person is prepared to make some changes, adapt and align, he or she will move. So I use this word. First, let us learn to adapt, align ourselves, and then act accordingly, irrespective of the job. Be it tourism,
Yeah.
be it anything, right? And I will give you another one. That was with the A, and now let me tell you in terms of the I, right? So as managers and supervisors, for improving your productivity, we should have three things. Number one, we should be able to invite people, let them get interested, and once they get interested, they will make investment. See, three keywords for us. So I would refrain by giving a particular job, but any
All right.
given job, any given situation, these are the three things.
I like that because it makes it easy for people to remember.
Remember.
Though I'm also thinking that some of our colleagues, some of your colleagues from ANPOD responded to a question that I posed to them. I said, so much work, so many jobs are being automated and replaced now.
Yes.
For example, there's this massive truck strike in Canada, which is really giving Trudeau a major headache. And yet we hear Tesla talking about self-driving trucks. If I were those truck drivers, I would spend, not to be insensitive to their plight. You know, they have families, they have needs, but I would probably spend more time trying to retool and learn something different before the job disappears. Because if those self-driving trucks fill up the roads, I'll be out of work. So, what do you think?
You see, if the self-driving truck will be operating on the road, but you need somebody in the control room to control the vehicle. So now the person who has been the truck driver, who understands the road, who knows how the road is, he will do the maneuvering of the truck from the control room. And that is what he has to adjust himself, align it, and act accordingly and acquire the skills.
So in some ways, it's like drones.
Yes,
People will remote.
readapting. Exactly, readapt yourself.
Oh my goodness, Daram, this is exciting, but at the same time a bit frightening. Uh, Airline pilots might lose their jobs as well, and imagine flying planes from remote. Now I don't know about you, but if I were the passenger and I knew there was no person behind the cockpit, Nobody you could threaten with a grenade or whatever. Literally, it's impossible to hijack, which is a good thing. But at the same time,
Well,
there's
I wouldn't take
nobody.
the flight.
Neither would I, frankly. I mean, I'd rather that they build a bank vault door leading to the
Yeah,
pilot's cockpit,
yeah,
but please put a human being
yeah.
behind the
See,
wheel.
the thing, it
Yeah,
can go, a lot of things can go without human on the front end, but it still needs the backbone of the person to do the programming and so forth from the control room. So not all jobs will be eliminated, right?
Daram, I also assume that you probably get invited to speak at universities and sometimes lecture in schools. Am I
Yes,
right?
yes, I do. Yes, I do.
How do you feel about the possibility that education might someday become asynchronous and automated, and that the engagement with the learners, instead of being hours long, turn into 10 minutes, 5-minute videos? um, are we from our generation prepared to adapt to that new demand?
Okay, you see, what's happening in the new generation is the new generation do not want to dwell too much on reading. They want to get a very quick fix. Quick fix. So when you talk to them on a subject, they do not want to see the front end and the back end. They just say, want to let me get to zoom to the situation, give me the facts within the 5 minutes, and I want to go in. Now, what happens is, uh, yes, you get to resolve a problem, but when you have a failure, you do not know what was done before. In some instances, you may be redoing, back what the earlier person has done. So
That
it's
is a
good
good
to know,
point. Yeah,
good to know
that's
a
a
little
good
bit of
point.
the history and a little bit of what we have done before, so that you won't do it. In
um,
that perspective, it is slightly different. Yes.
and that is a good argument for those of us like you and me who do get invited to speak at schools and
Yes.
to lecture, to maintain the discipline of reading,
Reading.
because without it, you're right, you don't learn from the mistakes of the past, you're bound to repeat it again.
Yes.
Because far too many people are too reliant on book reviews and they don't like to
Yes.
read the whole thing.
That's right.
um, and I don't know about how you feel about this. Are you like me that I miss the good old days of lifting hefty hardbound books and smelling the ink and leafing through the pages? Were you like that when you were younger, that you enjoyed being in a library because the wisdom of humanity is in it?
I'm still in it. I'm still in it. Because of my age, I find it a bit difficult to read through the screen. So I
Wow.
prefer books.
Yeah.
I still
Same
prefer
here.
books.
Yeah, and it's much to our consternation that sometimes when we visit a public library, all we see are computer monitors. The books that used to line the shelves are gone, and you're like,
Gone. Yeah.
where did they put them? There's
See,
nothing like the printed word.
printed. You see,
Yeah, but it's hard to make the new generation love it
love
because
this.
everything about them is instant, instant
Yes.
recognition, instant respect. And that's a different topic all by itself, I'm
By
sure.
itself. True. True.
But
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to your initial topic,
More
which is
subject. Yes.
increasing productivity during these turbulent times. um, Speaking of turbulent times, there are some things we can control, but there are other things that we can't, and you did mention weather. How do you feel about the geopolitical events that are taking place right now, and how that might prevent the transport of goods? Because you did mention that going out of the gate, when good finished goods leave the factory, that is a quantifiable output that can be affected.
Yes.
So how do you think organizations or companies can safeguard their shipments if things are heated right now around the planet.
Same. Well, we need to find a way how we can circumvent that journey. You see, so it may not go directly, it may go to the nearest spot, and from there it has to be transported on land. See, so that could be one. I mean, if I can recall this incident that Malaysia had one situation where a plane was shot down over that air some 2 years back. So it's like if you have used that air track, definitely you are in danger. You should avoid that place, but you can still go there in circumventing yourself to another route, and you can still reach your destination. It may be late, but you will be there. Better late, but then never.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. At least you arrive in one piece together with your
Yes,
cargo. Yeah.
that's what I would say. Now, like any situation like this, when the Middle East war was going on, um, everything was on sea freight. But with the Middle East war, air freight became an in thing. People started moving items by air. You see, so whenever a situation arises like this, there will be always something new that crops up. It doesn't mean the old items will die off. It will be there, but something new has to come in. So here, like this morning, I had this idea that flashed my mind. I said, there are two things that we have to understand ourselves: learning and innovation. Let's not be arrogant about what we thought that we did yesterday was good. Tomorrow is a new day. So I need to have new ideas, new learnings. And that's where I still go back. Let's learn to adjust, align, and act.
In other words, industry finds a way.
Yes.
Innovators will still manage to work their way
Go
through
through.
it.
Yes.
Mhm. Wonderful that we do have the continuous process improvement there
Yes.
to spur creativity and
You're most
innovation.
welcome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, how do you see industry and productivity improving, say, in the next 5 years? Because I don't think this pandemic will be over anytime soon. I mean, we're in it for what, 2 years now,
2 years, two
but
and a half years now.
two and a half. You're right. But looking forward, it looks like we may have to live with it. Um, what's your fearless prediction for how we can remain productive in these turbulent times, together with this virus-filled times?
Okay.
Uh, 5 years from now, what do you think?
Okay. I think is this. Number one, when a virus comes into the atmosphere, it is here to stay.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
reality. So if we accept that as a reality, then we need to find a way to live with it. We need to live with it. We need to find ways and means to move on.
Mm.
And here, when things go less, we need to find how we need to replenish it, and that's productivity. If things need to be adjusted, we improve the process. Right? So, and if we need to reach it at an earlier possible time, we improve the delivery time. So that's how I look at it.
That's right.
Right.
Um, Maybe in a future episode we could get you to speak about how productivity improvements can occur for non-manufacturing industries, because a lot of them are doing work from home.
Yeah.
When I go around the metropolis here in the Philippines, I often see entire offices closed and everybody working from home. um, and the trouble is they're actually busier now working from home than when they reported to the office, because at home
Yes.
there are so many distractions, there's so many interruptions. That'd be an interesting topic, maybe for you to discuss
Sure.
in the future.
We'll be more than happy. It's mind provoking.
Our programming director was right in saying that, Daram would be a magnificent guest to have. He will have a lot to share, a lot to say, and indeed. So I am looking forward to hosting you again in the future.
Looking forward
And
to. It's a pleasure.
more power to Anpad, by the way. For everybody's benefit, I'd like to let the Rams say maybe a few final words for our audience, maybe a message of hope. Yeah, hope should always spring eternal.
Yeah. Let me just give an indication. Let's look at productivity in two perspectives. Let's learn to do things differently every other day, and let's look at how I can innovate any given idea. And the only question I would say is, what can I do to make it better? If I ask this question every morning, I think we will find some ways to do things better every other day. With
Wow,
that, I'd like
thank
to
you so
say thank you
much.
very much for giving me this platform to express my little views. I'll just say thank you. Right.
You're very welcome, Daram. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember that coming in episode 12 of our season 8, the season ender, is something totally different. Vic Navales will be interviewed by Dinah Loomis, who will be talking about my painting, my hobby, my passion, my expression. So this is a total departure from the normal fare, and yet it feeds the soul. After all, without art, without self expression, our morale could take a real beating. So, as ever, please do click on the like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. And remember that learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day, everybody. Good
Good
day,
day.
Daram.
Good day.